We had an executive committee meeting, Zoom meeting today to discuss a few topics. But the one I want to discuss with all of you is the decision that was made today to move the Prep Classic out of New Orleans and to Northwestern State University. Over the course of the last 7 to 8 weeks, there's been continual dialogue between this office and the management team, SMG AMS, which manages the Superdome and the Smoothie King Center. And we watched, as you all have, through the course of this shortened football season, where we were going from living our lives from 14-day to 14-day to 21-day to 21-day to where it came week to week, and then it became day to day, and then the last 2 or 3 weeks of this football season, it came to hour on what could change at any hour where games would be scheduled, and for whatever reasons maybe there wasn't a game scheduled. So I think in the grand scheme of things, I want to start off with my open saying that I want to congratulate all the coaches, the athletes, all the sports medicine personnel from A to Z that's kept this football season moving. The regional doctors in cooperation with the schools, dealing with minimal and sometimes maximal information as it comes to not only the potential contact with a positive case of COVID-19 to a positive case of COVID-19 to the contact tracing, all the things that our people, your people you've been working with, have been working with since we started summer football in June, as well as all of our fall sports. So kudos to all of those individuals, as well as all the coaches of the fall sports that are already in the book, including the communities that surround those. The families have done an incredible job. Just everybody has got us to where we sit here today. The last stone that needed to be turned was the one where we were going to play the championship. And you follow the numbers of COVID, you follow the cases, you watch the numbers rise and fall. You see what happens after when it comes to after a holiday and how the numbers increase, and you see those increases now. What it boiled down to today was we had a conversation a week ago. I had a conversation with some of my executive committee, but also it boiled down to how many people are we going to be allowed to have in the facility? And we weren't able to get an answer. And today there's still not an answer. But let me say this. I remember the feeling like it was yesterday of what it was like to be in the Burton Center in March for state championships and be told last minute, well, you can only have this amount of people for the girls' state championship games. And then later, 2 to 3 days later, told you can only have 250 people last minute. And I and my staff were in that facility where it was just basketball teams, their coaches, and what little staff we had there. That feeling is stuck in my mind and stuck in my gut, because parents that were there had been down there, had already went to one game, a semifinal game, which the people were, I'm exaggerating by saying hanging from the rafters, but we had good crowds. We were anticipating good crowds for the boys' championship games on Friday and Saturday. And I had to tell everybody through media, you can't get in. You got to go to a restaurant or someplace in Lake Charles and sit and watch it via CST or whoever was streaming it. That sucked. I kept that in my mind and my heart. And I felt as though I don't want that to happen again. And it looked like it potentially we could wait and see what's going to happen in New Orleans with the local government, what decision might be made. Wait and see what decision might be made by our state government. But at the end of the day, waiting and see wasn't going to work for me, because if we waited and we weren't able to, or we were limited to 3,000 or limited to 1,000 or limited to 750, you've seen the teams that have come to the Superdome in the past. You've seen the crowds that we've had. And I said before, we can't really delineate single ticket sales for games or single attendance for games. As we know, we had large crowds that accumulated over Friday and accumulated over Saturday for those games. That wasn't going to happen at the Superdome this year because of restrictions. But because I didn't know who we could or couldn't have, or if a restriction could affect contact sports, maybe at the high school level, which could still happen. And not knowing, there's no way that the plan B would be worst case scenario, we scatter we go 9 games across the state at home sites at the highest seed. And in my opinion, that is not a championship type feeling. And these athletes, in my opinion, have earned that. So I think with what it boiled down to today was a decision to be made that we have something now that's etched in stone. We have a site, Shreveport, Bossier, Natchitoches, that area is all in region 7 of the epidemiologists and the regions assigned by the governor. That section is above a positivity rate beyond, I believe, 10 at the time, but Natchitoches Parish itself is not. And we're going to work our way through that process. But as we sit today, that is a facility used and has been used by Natchitoches Central and St. Mary's as a high school venue. We will be at 25% occupancy for that facility, which would give us about 4,250 per game, ticket sales per game. We don't have to choose who can be there, who can't. For the smaller classifications that may not bring as big a crowd, but will bring everybody in their city to those games. That capacity will fulfill that. And you've been to the Dome more than I have and know what games have what, depending on, it really doesn't matter the time of the day. But I will tell you this, that what we've agreed upon and what I was given direction on, it will be a 4-day, not a 3-day, but will be a 4-day event. My specific staff and myself are traveling to Natchitoches to meet with their team Thursday to discuss the format, the days. We will not be playing on the 26th. That will be a day of travel and setup. No one's going to have to travel on Christmas Day. That'll be a day for travel and setup, and we'll play Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. As I sent out the members to the membership, the format, who's going to play when and where, how many games are going to play on a day, that's under construction. We want to see who's going to be there. Travel distances, want to take a lot of different things into consideration when we set this up, because not everybody's going to want, because of COVID, is not going to want to spend the night anywhere. They're going to be putting themselves in charter buses or yellow buses to travel. And we're going to take all of that into consideration in this in a unique scenario, in an extenuating circumstances that surrounding this year's Prep Classic. Dr. Chris Maggio and the Executive Athletic Director, Greg Burke, I reached out to them at cross country. So just as recently as cross country, on would they be interested in potentially being a plan B? Explain to them the process. They knew that from the get-go, okay? And I was going to kind of wait and see, but we don't know what decision or when that decision is going to be made in New Orleans on what we could or could not do. I wasn't going to leave this thing hanging in the balance. And I know that I remember how it felt to have some of that piece taken away and telling who can and who can't come in a facility. And unless something drastic comes down from the state of Louisiana, I believe what we decided to do will benefit the athletes and will give them a championship venue feeling. Now, you and I both know we are not comparing apples and apples when it comes to venues. The Superdome is not only known in the state of Louisiana and the nation, it is also known worldwide. It is the New Orleans Mercedes-Benz Superdome. You can't change that. We understand that. I'm a Dome guy. I've stood in front of many of you and talked about the Dome, and specifically when it came down to the split between select and non-select. The Dome was an experience for kids. I understand that, and it makes my gut hurt to know that we can't give them that experience. But I felt as though it was more important to ensure they were going to get a championship in front of fans versus not, and potentially having to do something different than what we felt would be a good championship venue, which we pride ourselves on in hosting good championships, good venues, the best we can do, and our working relationship with Natchitoches, our state cross country, and what that city does for us while we're there had a deciding factor on why I reached out to them to discuss potentially being the plan B, which is now obviously turned into plan A. That's I'm open for questions if anybody would like to ask.
You said in the press release that financial responsibilities is one of the reasons. Could you explain that one, please?
Yeah, when we go to the Superdome, the costs of the Superdome are on the north side of over $500,000 to host the event there, and we work with gate receipts and other expenditures. But we also, years past, we were not able to fulfill we paid our bills, but weren't able to also give schools guarantees that are in our Constitution and bylaws for travel and deferring those costs. That was a piece of that as well. So we were able to get back on track with that. And at the end of the day, we're looking at potentially selling at the Superdome. The average has been between 39,000 and 45,000 ticket sales, which there was no guarantees we're going to get that, because even at 6,000 allowed at one point, which could very well turned into 5,000. And then as of today, I'm hearing that New Orleans Bowl and others may be even limited less than that. The numbers just weren't going to match. We weren't able to fulfill our obligations and pay our bills, and we can fulfill that by going to Natchitoches and Northwestern State University. Well, actually, the average was between 37 and 42. It just depends on the matchups, and you know how that works. It depends on the matchups and who's playing who, and so on and so forth. But that's what we've had in the past down there. And again, you might see on any Friday or Saturday down there, 18 to 22,000 people sitting in the lower bowl. Well, that was accumulated all day long from noon to that point, and we had no way of delineating how many ticket sales would be. I used the numbers we received from last year's Catholic High Rumble game played at Yenny on campus of Tulane. Was his ticket sales about 6,700. So that gives me an idea of what a game of that magnitude and those two schools would bring. You've seen the crowds when West Monroe shows up and played Hahnville, and West Monroe played Zachary in the 4A. You know the type of crowds that Carr and Warren and Eastern they could bring as well. So we took all that into consideration when we thought about it. Mike, what we've done in the past is once the seasons are completed, we have a meeting. We used to have a meeting here at the LHSAA offices. We brought in all 18 schools and their coaches. We gave game balls to them. We gave them ticket, allotment of pre-sale tickets and stuff. We're not doing pre-sale tickets because it's going to be done electronically. We're trying to keep the tickets out of each other's hands. We're not with the game balls. We have a contract at the time. We no longer have that contract for football. So schools are using the footballs that they want to use. So we're going to probably end up doing a Zoom meeting, not only with the select schools and private schools, but also with the public schools as well. That said, what we're going to discuss is that when we put this eight game season together, you probably know we adjusted recently, where initially there was could very well have been another bye at the beginning of the bracket, which had some schools, like one here in Baton Rouge, Scotlandville, would have been could have not played for 4 weeks before they played their first game. By recommendation from Ryan Gallagher, Brother Martin, who sits on our executive committee, but also works with his liaison with the private schools, surveyed them and said, hey, can we flip-flop what it was 2 years ago, where we play early on and that bye be at the end of the schedule versus the beginning, which is what it was 2 years ago. That's the format we have in place. The majority of the private schools, select schools, have stated they're okay with that week off to prepare. So we're going to continue to roll with that schedule there, Mike, and move forward with that, and then decide when we get closer to it. And you all know I've got Eric Held as my director of Coaches Association in this building that understands the state, understands travel, understands how those football coaches think. He's going to be a point guy for me on how we coordinate that, what games are going to be played, what time those games are going to be played. But I know with a four-day schedule, we may have combinations of 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, or we rotate it around and figure out what it's going to look like. We're going to take all that into account when we establish to set up that schedule. I will say this, that probably on the days that there's 2 games, we are going to allow 4 hours between games. It could very well be a noon and 4. On a 3-day, 11:30, 3:30, 7:30. It just depends on what we can or can't do, who can travel the closest. Let me give an example. Manny High School, maybe they're in it. Manny is just down the road. Maybe they can get there and play the earlier game and their opponent is relatively close. We got to look at all that, Michael. We're going to use common sense, okay? And try to see. It may not please everybody, but we're going to do the best we can to make it fair, equitable, and also assist the schools in maybe some a cost of not having to spend the night in a hotel or multiple nights in a hotel due to COVID, but also with expenses. Well, yes and no. At the end of the day, we play at noon. We play at noon, 3:30, and 7 in the dome, and we're indoors. So those are the times we've always had. And yeah, the mean temperature is 46 degrees there during that time. I'm very familiar with that type of weather coming from Reno, but I also know in Louisiana, it gets below 70, people put on hoodies and gloves. So it is what it is. But Michael, the bottom line is that the kids are going to get to play. We didn't even know we were going to have a season. And we're hoping the good Lord blesses us with that kind of weather in the 40s. If that's the case, clear, it is what it is. The kids get to crack heads and pop some leather, and it's good football weather for the kids. The fans might be a little chilly, but we're hoping that does it snow in Natchitoches? I don't even know if we get snow, but
yes,
I know it does snow a little bit up on I-20, but anyway. We have not, and those are going to be delayed. They're not live broadcasts. They're going to be delayed. So in fact, once this press release went out, I do know that CST had reached out to Wes and marketing to discuss that, and we'll get that finalized once we go up and meet with their team in Natchitoches on Thursday.
Mr. Bonine, do you think you got the full cooperation that you wanted from the city or not?
You talking about City of New Orleans or City of
Yes,
Natchitoches?
sir. City of New Orleans.
I think they did the best they could, but you know what? At the end of the day, I'm not the only show in town down there. You've got a Saints game on the 20th, a Saints game on Christmas Day. The week before that, you've got the New Orleans Bowl. And then after we moved out, after our 3 days, you had the Sugar Bowl right behind them. So in the grand scheme of things, I don't believe we were the biggest fish. I get it. But at the end of the day, I got the cooperation the best I could. But I understand that there's some red tape, and I know that those individuals who have a better sense of what goes on in New Orleans, not me, because I'm not down there, we're having some dialogue. And it seemed the majority of the dialogue was with representatives from the mayor's office and the regional doctor down there, who's been doing a good job trying to coordinate all that as well, Ed.
So bottom line, Eddie, this was just, you felt like you could guarantee more fans in Natchitoches right now than you could guarantee in the Superdome. Would that be safe?
That is correct. That is correct. Ed, go ahead. You were going to follow
Yeah.
up.
So were any of those events that you just mentioned, are they concerned about having it scaled back or not? Or
that would be speculatory on my behalf, but I have had conversation with the CEO of the Sugar Bowl, Mr. Hunley. I don't know anybody from the Orleans Bowl, but that would be probably Ed better to talk to them. But I know that with the schedule that was posted out of the mayor's office back in October, that had dates, percentages of positivity rate, how many per 100,000, all that stuff was bulleted for us to work from the 750 to the 3,000 to the 6,000 to eventually to the 12,000. As we sit today, I couldn't tell you how many people is going to be at the Saints game on the 20th or how many people are going to be allowed to be on the Saints game on the 25th. But from what I have heard today, potentially, at least the Orleans Bowl could be less than the 6,000 number. And that would be today. And there could be no guarantees, because I believe that the Thanksgiving holiday bump in coronavirus, that cast has been set, and we'll know sometime next week. And in all fairness to plan B for us, there's no way I could wait another week just in case and have somebody like NSU pull off an event of this magnitude. I mean, this is college game day for them 9 times in 4 days. So that we have to take into account for all the workers and all they do, including parking and street police and all the stuff that they do for a game day there. So we felt the need of timeline, and we needed to get it done now and not wait any longer.
Given that it's, like you said, college game day for them 9 times, is there anything that you guys are going to do collectively just to ensure, like, the safety health wise, or have you had those conversations in terms of what you're going to try to do to assist them with that?
We have. Northwestern has a plan in place, because actually they're going to kind of, I guess, use what we're going to do with us and social distancing and locations in pods of 6 or 4, depending on the family size, to kind of prepare for when they open up, if these same mitigating measures are in place. Hold on just a second. I don't know what's going on here. Hold on. Sorry about that. And so that they know these kind of a dry run for them, for when, if these are in place in the spring, they've already kind of had a dry run. Obviously, there'll be more fans than what we're allowed right now, but you don't know what potentially, if it's 25% of their overall stadium, is it going to be 50%? Have some of those mitigating measures gone away? We don't know, but they've got a protective plan in place for mass social distancing. What they're going to do with their concession stand, restrooms. They're going to have people that are going to assist in watching mass patrol. Not I'm going to call mass patrol, but they're going to have people in place to do all that stuff. I know we've had that conversation in a light way, but no, we'll go through more of that on Thursday.
And then what's your message to just maybe some of the parents or grandparents that maybe won't be able to go now because of the changes or a concern? What's your message to them?
Message is that at the end of the day, I have not lost focus on why I'm in this business. I'm in this business for the athletes of this state. And they have busted their tail, as all of the fall sport athletes did this year, to get to something that resembled a season, and now to the point that where we resemble a postseason. Many states are kind of impressed the fact that we've got to where we are. And in Nebraska recently, they got to where between the semifinal game and final game in Lincoln, Corona hit, and they had to send those schools back to their high school sites to finish their state championship. Didn't want to be that position. So tell the parents and the grandparents that there's going to be obviously some streaming availability as well if they're able to do that. But at the end of the day, the athletes are going to get a chance to play unless something happens between now and then. The athletes are going to get to play, and I think that was the most important. They've earned it. The coaches have earned it. And kudos again to all those individuals surrounding the programs that got us to where we are now.
Eddie, did you reach out to any South Louisiana venues about potentially doing this at all?
I had a good conversation in this office with LSU. That was prior to the basketball schedule coming out, parking concerns. I think the biggest part about LSU was the fact that the natural turf, if we did get any weather, what the condition of that turf would be, game 3, game 4, game 5, or eventually game 7, 8, or 9. I did not speak to anyone else along Interstate 10. I did not.
How much did Mayor LaToya Cantrell's statement yesterday on Twitter influence this decision when she said that if things don't turn around in a week, then there will be greater restrictions?
I saw the article. I saw that YouTube video, and again, it kind of comes back to Andrew. It was Andrew, right? Is that who just asked that question? I don't have my glasses on.
Yes.
Okay, Andrew. Yeah, Andrew. Okay. Yeah, it had a piece of it. It was another piece, and I took that article, actually scanned it, and sent it to committee this morning before we had our meeting. But absolutely, and you know as well as I do, can a community turn it around in a week? And the numbers for the Thanksgiving and Black Friday hasn't hit yet. So I think the numbers are going to get worse than before they get any better. And that's, again, Andrew, that kind of what gives us the pause on whether we would go down there or not. And in this case, the Mother Nature or the governor will be the only individual with whom could potentially change what we got going on at Northwestern. No other governmental agency.